Despite missing out on the China Grand Prix and the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Imola, F1 teams may still be butting up against the cost cap this year, which could make for an exciting end to the 23 season, which at this point, I think we'd all appreciate. As of this recording, the entire grid is on their second ICE, except for Red Bull, which means they only have one freebie left before the penalties start racking up. And many drivers have also had their max of energy store and control electronics parts limits, which tells me there's a lot of anxiety-ridden engineers right now praying to Jobu.
Yeah, I see. I cannot hit curveball. Straight ball, I hit it very much.
Or they're poring over data and trying to stop the bleeding to maintain a competitive edge. If you're not familiar with the F1 cost cap, well, don't worry, I'm sure there's a lot of other things you don't know either. You see, the F1 cost cap limits the amount a team can spend on its cars over the course of a given calendar year. Initially, the plan was for $175 million, but the government lockdowns created supply chain problems, resulting in the cap being lowered to $145 million for the first year, with an additional $5 million increase for 22 and a $5 million increase for 23. The cost cap is expected to remain stable and only be adjusted for inflation after this year. Now, $155 million sounds like a lot of money, but F1 cars can eat into that fairly quickly. That's because their parts are very advanced and super specialized. We're not talking about oil changes for your sister's Nissan Sentra. We're talking about $700,000 for a chassis, $250,000 for front and rear wings combined, $350,000 for a transmission, and $10.5 million for an engine. And they only get 3 without a penalty. On the lower end of the spectrum, teams are spending $35,000 for the weekend's worth of tires per driver per race. And all of it counts towards the cost cap. All of it. So now, think about how expensive Mick Schumacher was when he was turning Haas's into piles of goo. Quite the headache for a team manager on a budget. Every time a driver loses control, loses focus, and smacks into a wall, it's going against our cost cap. So what's all included in the cost cap? All parts of the car, spares, screws, nuts, all of it. Anything needed to run the car, most of the team personnel, garage equipment, transport, and additional costs. And what's not included? Driver salaries, wages, the third highest paid team members, travel and marketing costs, entry and race license fees, non-F1 or road car activities like promotionals, sick and parental leave, employee bonuses, and staff and medical benefits. Also not included in the cost cap is a like and subscribe. I just want to say thanks for visiting my channel. Feel free to look around. I've done some videos on everything from travel vlogs to F1 wives and girlfriends. And don't be shy about dropping comments below if you want to get in touch, or you just want to see video on something compelling or something specific, like violating cost caps. So what happens when you violate a cost cap? I mean, what's the rub here?
It's time for the rub.
Just ask Red Bull. They were found guilty of breaching the cost cap in 2021, and the team was fined $7 million, plus given a 10% reduction in aerodynamic testing for 12 months, starting in October 22. But in the opinion of Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur, it was less than a slap on the wrist. I think it was not a penalty, it was very low. If you consider that basically we will improve a bit less than 1 second over the season in terms of aero, you get the penalty of 10% of this. It's 1/10. You tell him, Fred. Team principal Christian Horner explained that it was an over expenditure on catering, which, given the amount of personnel for the larger teams, is entirely plausible, albeit very unlikely. Red Bull's rivals are tying their cost cap breach to on-track results, something Red Bull vehemently denies with its airtight catering legal defense. So does breaching a cost cap equal wins? Yours truly doesn't think so, but Lewis Hamilton seems to think that it does, and said if he had an extra $300,000 to spend on upgrades, they would have won the 2021 Grand Prix. I'm not so sure about that, but one thing's for certain, F1 added another layer of legality to the sport. Recently I did a video on Hamilton possibly having a championship vacated as a result of Felipe Massa's lawsuit. According to official F1 Financial Regulation 6.15, it states, time limitation on the prosecution of infringements by the cost cap administration is 5 years. So it's not like they can't go back and review these incidents, but it would also act as a double-edged sword, changing outcomes years after events occur. I don't think fans want their drivers and teams winning or losing years after something happens, but I could be wrong. Penalties for minor breaches include fines, public shaming, deductions in drivers and constructors' points, testing restrictions, among others. For major breaches, it's Well, the exact same thing, with the addition of exclusion from the championship itself. But for the major infractions, they'll just probably increase the amount of points the team and driver will lose, and their time in the testing facilities, etc. Overall, I do think the cost cap helps level the financial playing field, albeit marginally, which is what it's intended to do. It's a step in the right direction. Major League Baseball recently instituted a pitch clock this year, reducing the amount of time a pitcher has to throw the ball. I was in the, let's say, I hate it crowd, till it reduced the overall game time to 2 hours, and sometimes even less. Now the games are much more exciting to watch, and it was a step in the right direction. It affected the sport positively, and didn't really add any legalities, just rules. Increasing the legalities of F1 just makes it lame. I mean, what's next? An army of lawyers debating every late break into a corner? Are we going to have every infraction resulting in eternal litigation? Whoever has the largest war chest wins? I mean, that sucks. Who would want to watch something like that? Because the cost cap doesn't affect the legal expenditures, I'll tell you that much. But it's not like teams don't have options. They can find ways to stay under the cost cap, and they already are.
You're fired.
Layoffs, reduced development times, and manufacturing times all help tighten the financial belts. Not to mention replacing crash-prone drivers with ones who don't disintegrate their cars. As for the remainder of the season, I'm going to keep a close eye on the part replacements among the teams. And you should too, because it will be affecting how, and especially when, teams choose when to be competitive on certain tracks, with teams selecting to replace parts on tracks that best fit their cars and their drivers' driving styles. Alrighty gang, what do you say? Has the cost cap been effective at equalizing the teams, or is it just more of the same? Hope you liked the video. Look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thanks for coming by, and I'll see you in the next one.